It's that time of year where the weather's cooling off and all I can think about is splitting wood. After pulling the log splitter out, we cleaned off some of the sawdust and we're going to be changing these seals right here. Every time the shaft would retract, it basically oozed or squirted out fluid. So we're going to disassemble the head here and get into replacing that seal. So I didn't find a super clear, direct instructions for how to do this process. We're basically learning, figuring it out as we go. But now that we've got it figured out, hopefully this is helpful for you if you've got some seals that are leaking. Also, I've got another video where I show you how to replace the valve seals on your log splitter, so I'm going to put that here so you can check that out if you've got any problem with leakage there. Bear with me because I don't know the names of half of these things, like this little cap that was screwed on. I think it's some sort of a marker that shows where this piece goes into the tube. Like I said, I don't know the names, but hopefully you can see everything clearly, so even if I don't know what the thing is, you can see what the thing is and you'll be able to follow along easily. We were really careful to make sure we cleaned everything as we went so we didn't have any junk going back in when we reassemble. There's a snap ring holding this piece into the cylinder. You could use the actual hammer where we didn't, and it would be a lot faster to push that back into the cylinder so that you can get in there and remove the snap ring. If you have any tips for removing a snap ring out of this sort of situation, I'm all ears because it took us forever to get this thing out of here. Oh, almost had it. Almost had it.
Now keep pulling with that one and just pop it out. There.
Did it. What to do when replacing seals on a log splitter is clean everything as you go. What not to do is to dump all of your hydraulic fluid out when you're pulling the shaft out of the cylinder. Now before we get to that, we took the bolt out of the head of the log splitter and put it back through the shaft so that we had a point to pull on with the winch. We thought it best to pull in as straight of a line as possible, so we unhooked the tilt on the splitter and then we used a strap to make sure it wouldn't tilt all the way up so that we could maintain that angle straight from the winch to the cylinder. And I know this looks like a whole contraption, and that's because it was, but you know what? It worked. Once everything was in place, he pulled back with the winch in the four-wheeler, and it actually came out pretty smoothly. However, neither of us thought about that end popping out and losing all of the fluid, which is why my face was like, what did we just do? But you know what? We can replace fluid, so we just laughed about it and moved along. Once that first end popped out, we were able to pull the rest of it out pretty easily. The replacement kit that we bought had rings and snap rings and all of the parts for this entire piece, so we're going to replace everything. So we're taking off 2 rubber rings, and then there's a plastic snap ring that's also on here, so we're going to remove all of those. After pulling those rings off, we're going to pull this piece off of the shaft because the seal that's causing the problem is in the center of this. So we're going to pull it off of here, and eventually I'm going to find a hammer, but I grabbed a pair of fencing pliers and used that to tap this off of the shaft. It was obvious once I started pulling the rings out of here why this was leaking, because these seals and rings, or whatever they're called, were literally falling apart.
It's like disintegrating. Look at that.
That's why it's failing.
That's why.
What's that other black one?
That's one of those, like, those snap looking ones.
Oh, that's the plastic,
The plastic one. I don't know what to do with this. Is there one of those?
Keep that one. Oh. There's 2 rings in there?
Yeah, so
One's in the end, and then this one would be
that one was in
inside.
the end. Yeah, that's the there was the black ring in there.
No idea how you get it in there. I guess you just press it.
Bubble it. You have to like bend it in there. This is so much fun.
Once we got that crumbly junk out of there, there was a snap ring inside of here, which he took that off camera and worked on getting that out of there because snap rings at this point are my enemy and they don't like me, so I just let him handle it.
Yeah.
I kept sliding around.
I'll go to a flat work surface.
Then he pulled the shaft out of the cylinder here so that I could change this snap ring and 2 rubber rings that are on this end. Make sure you take note and remember the order that you took the old pieces off so that you can put the new pieces back on in the right order. Like I said, I didn't find clear instructions, a diagram, piece by piece, how to put this thing together. So we had to make sure that we remembered the way it came off so that we could put it back on in the right order.
I did it way easier on the other one. So it came right off.
Okay. Oh, that rubber ring goes in.
There were 2 rubber rings stacked on top of each other on this piece and then a snap ring, which we didn't have any hard feelings with this snap ring. It came off really easily compared to those ones that were inside of the cylinder and inside of that other piece. Again, I was super particular about making sure everything was wiped down and clean. I didn't want any sawdust or dirt going back into the cylinder of the log splitter. So there were 2 different types of rubber rings that stacked next to each other. The one was a softer round ring and then the other was a bit of a firmer, almost square rubber that those 2 stacked together, and then the snap ring obviously goes underneath of those.
Boom! Done!
After replacing those pieces, it's time to put the shaft back into the cylinder. Moving the leather releases some of the pressure inside of the cylinder, and then tapping on the end of the shaft, we got that to slide back in. I still don't know what this thing is called, but moving on to the problem child here, the seals inside of this are what were causing our leakage.
It was this way.
Yeah, which way did it come out?
There's a flat ring and then a round ring. The flat one goes towards the outside of this piece, and then the round one sits behind it.
This is the outside. The ring.
The rubber ring would be on in here, I think.
Yeah, that's what I.
What you were thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as we're both thinking the same thing, it's probably what it was.
Snap things. That'll be easy. We hope.
Putting this snap ring in was way easier than taking it out. But after we got this piece in, then we are getting into the blue seals or whatever these pieces are called. And these are the ones that are actually going to replace and fix that leaking issue.
They go this way, and that ring was to the back, right?
These were bendable but firmer than just a rubber ring, and we had to kind of bend it to pop it down in there. But once we put it in and seated it, then we would put the other one in. Again, make sure that you take note of the way they came out so that you can put the new ones back in the right way. I'm laughing watching this part again because I was determined to get that piece in there by myself, and then the random comments about the dog in the barn and the mice are just too funny.
How does that fit in there? Oh. I was gonna say, the hole looks smaller.
He thinks something's in the hay barn, which it probably is.
Get your fingers out of the way.
It smells like mouse up on the top of the garage.
See? You can do it.
Okay, so we got the seals on there, and now we're going to put this piece back onto the shaft. And once I press it on there as far as I could with my hands,
Actually, I had to tap it off with that.
the idea was to just take a board and hammer this back on. And then we realized we should press the shaft all the way into the cylinder so that we would actually have something substantial to hit against as we're swinging the hammer.
There, that's all the way in.
Which, speaking of, we actually have a hammer now. Once we got that started onto the shaft, we then put a little oil or the hydraulic fluid onto the rings so that it would slide smoothly on in. And then he requested that I did not hit his fingers, which I did my best, and I did not hit any of his fingers. But then he held up the shaft as I went around with the hammer and board to press that into the cylinder. Make sure you tap around in a circle as you go so that everything is seated properly and it doesn't get skewed in there when you're tapping it in. Next, we need to put that metal snap ring back into there, which was a lot easier going in and coming out. And then after that, we need to find that small cap washer looking thing.
Okay.
And that screws in there, and we weren't really sure what we were supposed to do with this thing.
Gotta get this in the slot, Diane. I don't know where this goes into the slot.
Right inside the lip of the cylinder here is a groove, which it seems that the snap ring would go into. And then we thought that this washer piece would kind of go in behind that, but that didn't really work. And so this is how we ended up with it, and we're not entirely sure what the purpose of it is. So if you know, I would like to know, because I don't know. Regardless, we put everything back in the order that we took it apart, so everything should be working properly. Now that everything is back in place, it's time to fire it up and see how it goes. Then we threw a log on there and tested it out, and we had no leaking fluid. Even though I don't know all the mechanics and all the technical names and all the mechanical stuff, I still really enjoy doing this project. I appreciate you taking time to listen to me on how to change these seals on your log splitter. I hope this video is useful and you can get your log splitter back and running smoothly. I'll also link a video to changing the seals in your valve if you need to do that for the handle of your log splitter. And that's all for now. I hope to see you next time. Give this video a like, subscribe, do all the cool things. I'll see you next time.